Finally, the benefits and importance of Apple News are being recognized. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. Visit expressvpn.com/MacVoices, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's Tuesday night. It's MacVoices Live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We'd love to have you join us, along with all the friends that are in there now, and more keep showing up. Every time I look down at the chat, somebody else has come in. We'd love to have you there, and we'll greet you if we possibly can. If we're not engaged in serious discussion or tomfoolery or both at the same time, which with this group is entirely possible. Some interesting things tonight, and I've had some emails, I've had some queries about why we don't talk about just Mac stuff. And I think if you take a look at our topics, what you will find is that, yeah, they may not be specifically Mac, they may not even be specifically Apple, but they do have to do with the larger tech world and the tech world we're living in. And that means Apple is a big part of that tech world. So at this stage, I personally feel like anything in the tech space is pretty much fair game that we want to take on. That's why we talk about things that relate to OpenAI and security and hacks and breaches and all of those kind of things, to try to give you a little bit of information, but also let you think about it in ways that you might not do on your own. And if there's a panel that can make you think about things in a way that you wouldn't normally think about it, it's this panel. Let's go around the room and find out.
Or your money back.
Or your money back. First up, in the top left of my screen, as he always is, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, great to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Chuck. And we always have some great conversation no matter what the topic is, and we always bring up some interesting stuff. So can't be always Apple.
No, it can't always be Apple. I look at Eric Bolden and I just think Christmas, red and green. You know, lots of red on the shirt, lots of green in the background. So, Eric, was that what you were going for, or were you going for something else?
Well, I'm trying to go for vacation, and this is the last piece of clothing I have that's clean and not packed. And
you mean you're leaving for vacation?
Yeah, I'm out of here. I'm barely here tonight. 2 weeks.
Oh, great!
Nice.
Don't tell anybody. I don't want them to find me.
Great. Eric will be staying at the Holiday Inn, room 732.
Call whenever you want, except for the SWAT team.
So, but behind me is a picture of a sour cherry tree with cherries that I'm hoping are not ripe before I get back.
Okay.
I'm keeping an eye on them.
What webcam?
Well, yeah, it should be. It's more of a static image because I figure it's more likely I will see something. A webcam, I would just be crying with the birds taking little pieces of cherries off the tree.
Yeah, I can understand that.
This one, I could take a pen and color in red on all the cherries and pretend they were ripe.
Well, thank you for delaying your vacation enough to be here tonight. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I wouldn't miss it.
Yes. Next up, his partner in the Apple Vision Pro podcast, the Apple Vision Pro podcast. I can't talk, but Marty Jencius. Marty, good to see you.
It's good to be here. It's been a rough couple of days. I wasn't going to say this publicly, but my therapist said it would be good for me to say it publicly. My cat died a couple of days ago.
Oh,
sorry.
All right.
Oh, it won't wave anymore.
Oh.
And I replaced the battery, and my happy cat is still smiling, but eyes are closed. And I knew the show was coming up, so I did an emergency. I went to emergency happy cat shelter and have a new one in the background now.
We see it.
We all got suckered in. We all got
I know.
suckered in.
I'm glad that your cat went with a smile on its face. At least it was in an environment where it was loved, and just, I mean, what a big heart you have by going to the shelter and finding another cat in need of a loving home.
Yeah. Yeah, it cost me $8. Amazon delivered it overnight.
See, that's love right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moving on.
Cloning, it's real.
Apparently we have with us tonight Father Guy Serle, who was looking like he was getting the last rites to Marty's cat.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Dr. Nick. Yeah, I am as a cat lover, I have to say that I'm mourning the loss of Happy Smiling Waving Cat.
Jim Ray's here. Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
Silence.
My cat just ran away, so
Recently?
about a year ago.
Okay. Well, we're sorry.
I still miss him though.
But it's nice to have you here. Is that what? No, never mind.
See, this has gotten really melancholy.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened.
Oh.
Last but not least, speaking of melancholy, Mr. Jeff Gamet, who is never melancholy. He's the anti-melancholy.
I'm just actually really sad tonight. I just feel so bad for Marty and now Jim. It's wait, I've got a happy song. Marty, I'm making a happy song for you now.
Okay.
It's happy smiling waving cat. It's happy smiling waving cat. Happy smiling waving cat. Domo arigato.
Ah,
Yeah, that'll work.
there's a whole story about these happy cats, but I'll save that for after dark.
He's Melon Beagle.
Oh boy.
Chuck,
Okay,
this is all on you.
It is. I try so hard to control the show, and it just goes right off the rails, right off the bat. So let's kick this off. If I can find the chat, I've lost the chat. This is one problem with Zoom. There it is. First article up tonight. Kind of a surprise and sort of a nice thing, although it's a surprise. Apple News Plus could be a lifeline for news and magazine sites. I don't know how much press this got, but it really caught my eye because it seemed like Apple News has been kind of denigrated over time and not really, I'm not sure the phrase is not taken seriously, but not seen as a big deal. And all of a sudden now, it's almost like some of the lesser sites are figuring it out that it makes sense to be on Apple News and are making money from it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how many people here use Apple News on a regular basis?
I do.
I do.
Part of my
I think I'm the odd man out on that one.
Any particular reason, Jeff?
Actually, yes. By the time Apple News became a thing, I had already set up all of my curated lists in Flipboard and had everything showing the way I want, and for the most part, getting the content that I want. So I didn't have any impetus to move to News Plus.
Okay. Hey, coming in late, fashionably late, Ms. Kelly Gammott. Kelly, good to see you.
Kelly!
Can you hear us? Okay.
Not yet.
We'll come back to Kelly. Jeff, I hear you, and I, especially with Flipboard, I understand because I love the Flipboard interface. It really lets you get through a lot of material quickly. But that said, I find the notifications from Apple News Plus pretty good, and they don't seem to just push a lot of garbage at me. At least the way I have my settings arranged. but just things that I really need to and want to get to.
You hit on a point or on a feature that for me doesn't apply, because I have taken a page out of Brittany's book and have actively worked to minimize the notifications that I'm getting on my phone. So I would not have News Plus giving me any notifications anyhow, so that feature that adds value to you, there's no value in that for me.
That's a fair point.
But I'm totally willing to accept and certain I'm in the minority here. I think most people probably do get a lot of value out of News Plus.
Before we go any further, I want to re-welcome Kelly Gammott, who I hope can now hear us. Kelly, good to have you.
It's great to be here now that I can actually hear you.
Yes, it's been a little while. Nice to see you.
It has, yeah.
Nice to see you. We are. Tell you what, Kelly, I'll put the link back in the show notes for you, so you know what we're looking at.
Okay.
Then we'll move on to Marty, and then David after Marty.
Yeah, I started out skeptical about News Plus, but I got it bundled with everything else and set it up, and it seems like it's better curated for me now in terms of news that's coming in. I'd like to say it's the news service I go to first thing in the morning and refresh, and sometimes refresh during the day to see if they've covered anything that I'm aware of. But I still have a subscription to Washington Post and the New York Times. I think the part of this article that I find interesting is the fact that some of these publishers, including in magazines, are seeing this as a resource for them to get some money from the clicks and the playthrough of their stuff. I wouldn't, I can't remember the last time I got a hard copy magazine, but if I remember to look at them, and there's quite a few of them in News Plus, I have to remember to look at them on an iPad because they just don't play so well on small iPhones. But I'm enjoying the service.
Okay, David.
Yeah. One thing is this happens because they're going to happen to be my topic on at MacStock. So I've been definitely doing some research on it because it's part of what I was going to talk about. But I was going to say, yeah, I'm finding that Apple News Plus and Apple News for that matter has been a pretty good aggregator. I kind of distanced myself a little bit, when it first came out, but as I got the bundle and started using it, and I find that it's not a bad place to aggregate. I mean, I use other RSS feeds to feed for a lot of sites, but News Plus is a good bonus to that. And I'll also add too, even Eric made a comment in our private chat that the magazines are pretty good, and there are quite a few magazines, especially the UK computer magazines, especially Apple and Mac-centric magazines that are out there. We love reading every month, and to have them right there instead of having to actually go subscribe to them. I mean, a lot of people are still subscribing to magazines, but when you have it all in one place and be able to read and then look at the information when you want to, it's a great resource. But the news itself, I mean, I find it to be very valuable. I mean, when you got Wall Street Journal as part of it, you don't have to have a subscription to Wall Street Journal to want to read most of the articles from there. And I think a lot of the other newspapers are finding it to have a little more value. So.
Yeah, Eric, you say you like the magazine access. Any are you talking about mainstream magazines, or are you talking about kind of like off the wall magazines? What is it that you find valuable?
You're muted.
Oh, muted, Eric. He's on vacation, folks.
I'm already gone. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that. I like the photography magazines. So like Canon's got one and Nikon's got one, and then there's some general ones for travel and technique and sometimes there's just background stories of place, location. It's great anytime. It's like carrying around a newsstand where you've got a couple minutes because you're waiting for somebody or you're sitting and it's not enough time to read a book. but it's enough time you can pick up a magazine while you're waiting at the doctor's office and page through it and not have to, deal with whatever magazine happens to be there, or post-COVID where they got rid of all the magazines and there's absolutely nothing in the office anywhere. This still gives you access to that. And I find that kind of useful.
Interesting. Hey, we have all kind of latecomers tonight. Although Brian Flanigan-Arthurs had warned me that he had another commitment that might drive him late. So he's here. Brian, good to have you. I'm glad you made it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And my apologies on my tardiness.
No problem. No problem. Life happens. We're talking about Apple News Plus, and I'm curious, are you a user or subscriber, depending on how you look at it?
Yeah. For me, I use it just about every day. I do use the free version, not subscribed, but definitely access it on a daily basis. And one of the neat things, actually, I found out, and I don't know if it's relatively new or just something I newly discovered about it, is that when people send me like a link to a news story, and I click on it, like, just through even an SMS, not even necessarily an iMessage, it starts showing up in the news feed as one of those stories that you can click on from there. And it says sent from whoever the person is that sent it to me. So I thought that was actually kind of cool, and something that was even in the free feature set.
Today's Mac Voices is supported by ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. Data brokers are selling your data. That's not a maybe or a possibility, it's a fact. They gather every bit of information they can and then sell it to anyone who wants to really target an ad at someone with your interests and your demographics. But it isn't like they're selling just to the highest bidder. They sell to anyone, including the Department of Homeland Security and the IRS. I'm not anxious to have someone knock on my door because of some random search I did on my phone. That's why I use ExpressVPN to keep my internet activity private. The fastest, easiest way for you to be tracked is through your IP address. With ExpressVPN, your IP address is hidden, making you that much harder to get a beat on. ExpressVPN encrypts all your traffic, at home, on your Mac, or on the road on your iPhone. One tap and you drop off the rolls of being easily tracked. I don't want someone looking over my shoulder when I'm online, no matter where I am online or what I'm looking at. That's exactly why ExpressVPN is turned on at all times on my devices. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/MacVoices. That's ExpressVPN, expressvpn.com/MacVoices. And you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/MacVoices. Thanks to ExpressVPN for supporting MacVoices. Kelly, I know you were sorting your gear out a little bit. How about you? Apple News Plus user?
Yeah, I do. My house decided that everyone having Apple Music would be a benefit, and as opposed to just me. So we moved to the bundle, which comes with News Plus, and so it's sort of the service I thought of as getting for free because I don't really use Arcade for much of anything. So it's kind of the thing that we got as a result of having paid for the other stuff that we actually were using. So I have dabbled in it. I prefer the experience on my iPad, but I appreciate that the iPhone experience is good. It's just that a lot of times I like to sit down and read something that's in more of a printed magazine kind of a format a lot of times, and I like to check out the pictures and some of that stuff as well. And so having a larger screen for that is always nicer. But I do like it for the news, and the suggestions do get better over time. It's just sort of sometimes like getting to the point where it starts surfacing things for you that you are actually going to enjoy reading. Sometimes is a little bit rough, but getting through that bit made it a lot easier, and it didn't take as long to sort of tune as some of the other stuff has that I've used, that you kind of have to wait for it to get smarter over time. I'm still waiting for my keyboard to get a little smarter, but Apple Music took a little while. News Plus took the shortest amount of time, I think, of all of them to, these are the kinds of things you like to read, so I'm going to show you more of those kinds of things instead of, something I almost am interested in, and then two things completely out of left field that I couldn't care less about. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marty though brought the point up that I thought was most interesting here, because there are so many things out there that want you to subscribe for only $3.99, $4.99, $4.99, $5.99 a month. And each one of them are worth it if that was the only thing I was subscribing to. But I am interested in articles from all of them. And so as a result, I end up subscribing to none of them. And now with Apple News Plus, the way it's become, and the fact that more of these entities are signing on board with it, it feels like they're deciding that it's maybe better to have a smaller piece of the pie than no pie at all. I don't know if that's fair, but that's the impression I get from the article, and also from seeing some of the other things that, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just, there are some things that are worth, $50, $60, $70, $80 a month if you're the right audience. But there's so many options for news out there that are free or ad supported. And, it's maybe not quite as high a quality curation, but it's there. So I don't know. I thought it was nice to see Apple getting, some positive press for Apple News Plus instead of it just being a tag along service.
I kind of wonder where this, this article caught my attention as well. And I'm kind of wondering where it came from. Did Apple and PR somehow initiate this or something? I mean, I can't imagine all these media outlets suddenly like contacted some journalist and said, "Oh, did you know that?" I mean, not that I don't believe it, but it just seems kind of weird that all of a sudden, Slow News Week or something. I'm glad. I hope it's true, because I like Apple News and I use it, and I'd hate to see outlets drop out of it. But it did seem like kind of a weird story out of the blue. Why is this a story this week?
Jim, I think it's a real fair question. The interesting thing is, though, I don't remember seeing this unless it was quoting this particular article. I don't remember seeing a lot of other places bring this up. So whether it was just something that, and this is from where's this, from 9 to 5 Mac, Ben Lovejoy. Yeah. And so whether Ben just decided, hey, it was time to write this piece, or like you said, Slow News Week, but regardless, it's there.
It's hard to tell because those outlets all quote each other all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, I don't even know where the story came from.
Well, it doesn't appear like this one links out anywhere. It does, it doesn't show at the beginning like somebody announced a thing, and therefore, so it seems like maybe this was the source. The thing that sort of struck me about this after I read it, my primary takeaway was, if news publications have sat down, have all, collectively sat themselves down and realized that I can have a little piece of apple pie or I can have nothing, and a little slice is better, they got there orders of magnitude faster than record companies, movie companies, TV, cable providing people, book publishers, game makers, like so many other people, dragged themselves kicking and screaming. And so if they've gotten this far at this point, I feel like they got there so much faster than anyone else did. And maybe there's an outside chance that this is the kind of thing that will continue to help fund actual journalism, investigative reporting, bigger sorts of things, not just everybody sitting down and writing the same article about the same press release, but going and digging into the bigger kinds of stuff that are the kinds of things that you remember journalists for, and the reason that people want to go into journalism in the first place. Signed, somebody who went to college for a journalism degree.
Let's see, Jeff.
Jim, I think that your curiosity about where this news story started and is it slow news week, all of that, that absolutely legit. And I think that this is a piece we're getting now because we are in the lull between new product announcements and WWDC. And I think the real problem here with this piece is that it's tagged as news, and this is not news. This has been keeping his finger on the pulse of the industry and or the Apple ecosystem, and seeing things that are telling him that Apple News may be able to offer some value to these publications, and putting a bunch of pieces together and giving us an analysis piece or an editorial, and not actually news.
9 to 5 is in Apple News, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cleese in the chat room points out that there are lots of magazines are not on it though, and so to which I said, yet. We'll see who else discovers this as a potential revenue source. Marty?
Yeah, to kind of jump off of what Kelly mentioned, I think print media is really in danger in terms of revenue and being able to maintain, its own business, particularly magazines and hardcover magazines. So I think this is, again, a piece of the pie that they can get into, and I might not pick it up at the newsstand, or I might not get a subscription that's mailed to me every month, but I will open it up in Apple News Plus and look at the magazine. And if I add that magazine and it gives them more revenue, they're getting some revenue that they wouldn't normally get from me anyways.
Yeah. I'm whoever said it. Well, interesting comment, Guy. I don't know. Is it dead, or is it dying because the population is aging out that was so in love with print, or that's all they had?
It can be both. There's certainly no reason why it can't be both. The biggest problem with print journalism is, the younger generation isn't interested in static images. They want to be entertained at the same time that they're getting their news. And a standalone newspaper, a standalone magazine, for the most part, isn't going to give them that. So it's a shame because I agree with Kelly that print journalism is better suited for investigative reporting as compared to a random number of bloggers set up all over the world that have no real I can't even think of the word I'm looking for. Have no real loyalty to any particular magazine or outlet, and so they go out, they get whatever it is that's in their little spear, and they say, okay, well here's what I'm seeing. So there's no editorial. Damn it, words are hard today. There's no one really kind of looking over their shoulder and saying, okay, well this is more of an opinion than it is a fact. So let's cut this down a little bit. Let's bring this part of it back up, and present what truly are the facts to your readership, and let them decide how they feel about it, instead of being basically told, well, you should feel this way because. And that kind of journalism, for the most part, is dead. There was, there used to be an editorial section in all of these different newspapers, and now the newspapers that are left are basically all completely editorial instead of just being hard-hitting news. And that's a shame, because it just leads to a further divide for everyone who may or may not feel the same way as the opinion that's being put out by that particular piece. Okay, I feel better now. Breathe.
Guy, I hear what you're saying. But are we still in an evolutionary process where everything kind of got scattered to the four winds, and eventually it will figure out a way to come back together or become something a little
Not
more
in print.
coherent?
Not in print.
No, absolutely not in print. I'm talking about the investigative journalists you were referring to. That, sooner or later,
Well,
somehow,
maybe.
will this come back?
Well, think of it as the same way as cutting the cord. Everybody was all excited to cut the cord from their cable companies who were giving them 900 channels with nothing to watch. And now there's so much to watch on each one of the different streaming services that it's almost impossible to figure out what it is that you want to watch anymore. And so if the existing magazines and the existing newspapers can somehow create an umbrella organization with a little strategy and with a little more control over the various people that are sending in their articles based on what it is that they're seeing in their areas, then it could lead to a resurgence of things like the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Miami Herald or what have you, that has the hard-hitting, fact-based news that I think most people really want versus, here's what I think that you should believe because this is the way that I believe. And that's, it's not a bad thing for that to happen. Let people make up their own minds based on the facts behind a particular story or a particular topic. And, don't preach to people. I think that's part of what has also killed print journalism, besides the fact that it was going to die anyway, was that people, I think people are for the most part are tired of being preached to about how they should feel versus just letting them make up their own minds on how they want to feel.
I know, pardon me, I know I am. Brian?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how quickly sometimes the news updates, changes, stories break, things of that nature. Apple News, I think overall does a very good job of, larger, bigger topics that are more slow moving. But even when I'm thinking about newspaper, it got me thinking, hearing about, the decline of print media and things of that nature. I'm thinking about some of the newspapers, that we got as kids at our house. My parents would read every day, and our statewide newspaper, if you want to read about something that's statewide, that almost is too fast moving. And for other sources that are much more able to handle that kind of information are things that I kind of gravitate to. Things like the local news channels and their websites tend to break that information a lot quicker, and with visual information too, in addition to the print. But then at the same time, I'm thinking there's still a lot of value, I think, with your when the idea of editorializing and opinion pieces and things of that nature were brought up. I think there's a lot in the local newspapers that are just more like of a city or a town centric. I think still have a lot of value.
It's going to be interesting again to watch the evolution because we've already lived through a lot of it evolving and to see where it goes from here. But I'm with you all. I think print media is all but dead, except for some very specific use cases. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.